him. Good man, phone me back. I was on the tube. Matt Vickers, MP, good afternoon.
Hey, all good, all good. How's it going?
Right, I'm going to put you on the spot today. We're mates, but I'm going to put you on the spot. You speak really well. You're always very passionate. There is a continuing frustration, I have to say, with your party that got us into a mess. I've been doing this for many years, but in the last 5 months, I have never known the level of anger. We saw this petition yesterday reaching nearly 3 million, but it's not going to change anything. But it seems that we are spending every day talking about mistakes and things happening. Let me start with the main news today, Matt. Vauxhall owner to close its Luton factory because of this increasing dependence on electrical vehicles. 1,100 jobs to go. But I'm going to be honest with you. I can blame Keir Starmer to a degree. This started with Boris Johnson. Everybody seems to have gone net zero mad. This is people's jobs going by the by for what?
I think, do you know what, the net zero thing, it's everybody wants to be greener. Everybody wants to leave our environment in a better place than we found it. But there has to be realism. There has to be a bit of pragmatism. We have to look at what it costs people in their back pocket. It's not one or the other. It's not about being green or job. It's about making moderate, sensible decisions in life. But when it comes to investment in this country, when it comes to the jobs that are going to go down the pan in the next few months, well, years, we've got 4.5 years of this to go yet, Jeremy. We started on this project with the Labour Party, who are taxing people to death. We've seen it cost you now to employ people more than it ever would have. We've seen the hit on pensions.
Why would you set up a business? But don't talk me off it, because I'm going to ask you, because you're an honest man. Boris Johnson must take some of the blame here. The Tories must take some of the blame, because this obsession with net zero is not shared by the electorate. I don't buy. I watched that Cop-Out 29 and Miliband. I honestly think there's enough going on, Matt, in this country for people to say, do you know what? Govern for your people instead of ideology, because it's not important to us right now. Is that unfair?
Do you know what? I think the vast majority of parliamentarians in there would agree. Well, not anymore, perhaps, but I think the vast majority of members of part of my party would agree with you that it's about realism. It's about doing what you can to be greener. And there's opportunities with being green. You look at some of the things going on Teesside around green energy and jobs of the future, jobs that were in steelworks, jobs that are now in green energy and putting together wind turbines and this, that and the other. All very good, all very good. We should be at the front of it. We want to get ahead of all that technology. But in real terms, actually, those are choices that you make. And the reality is this country doesn't... Are we about 1% of global emissions? 2% global emissions?
I don't see any of the big... I don't see any of the big countries that let out all these emissions were anywhere near Baku. The Taliban were there. Let me put this to you as well. You represent Teesside, right? Stockton West, right? Where do you personally, as an MP, stand on this as a theory from me? So we've got all this oil and gas underneath our seas and underneath our thing, and all the environmentalists go, we can't frack and we can't do this. What we've got to do is we've got to clean energy and whatever, but that's not going to be enough, and we might have to import it at twice the cost. From a business point of view, Matt, that doesn't make any bloody sense at all to anybody.
Well, you've seen it. You've seen the people who bankroll the Labour Party. You've seen the Extinction Rebellion guys. Yeah. Persuaded Labour have backed down. They said there are not going to be any more licences given out for North Sea oil and gas. So what we're going to do, we're going to import it. That's going to create more emissions by importing it from elsewhere. It's going to take away all the wonderful jobs, the well-paid jobs that operate in that field, and give them elsewhere to other countries. We're not any greener because we're importing all this stuff. We're still using it. We're still going to... The end result is still the same, but actually more emissions of importing it, losses of jobs, cost to the British taxpayer. Absolutely bloody ridiculous.
It is completely ridiculous. Interesting, though. So on the front foot today, we talked about Luton. Saatchi and Saatchi, I was reminded earlier, did this amazing advert for Thatcher years ago saying Labour isn't working. He sort of coined that today, the farmer, Harmer Starmer. Britain isn't working. And he's sort of talking about how mental illness is affecting people, but it almost intimating, wow, shocking, almost intimating that there are people who are garnering our system, finding a loophole in our system. We have to be always very careful because, of course, quite rightly, there are many who are disabled and mentally ill, and I've said it last hour, I'll say it this hour, I am more than happy to pay my tax to help people like that. We had an ex-veteran with PTSD on. I'm happy to pay my tax. He's more than happy. We all should be. But, Matt, and I think, again, I'm being honest, I think your government could have done more, and I think this government needs to understand people are fed up with people taking that out of hard-working people who never break the law and pay their taxes and have never had a handout, and they see migrants and they see prisoners and they see scroungers getting stuff. And all the bedwetters hate me saying this, but honestly, people who've worked all their lives go, why did I do it correctly? Because I've been screwed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, when you look at what's happening now, what's he going to do about it, Keir Starmer? He's going to have a consultation. That's the solution to all the world's problems. He's actually watering down all the measures that were being brought forward by the previous government about toughening up on the way in which we allow people to qualify for sick pay and claim sickness benefits, which, do you know what? The world hasn't got more sick. The UK, since the pandemic, the number of people who apparently are out of work because of sickness is through the roof. The world isn't more sick than it was. Our health isn't ailing more than it was. Some of this is about the fact that we medicalise everyday problems. We all have bad days. Some people have serious problems that cause depression, and we should be there and we should be helping those people. But then there are other people who have a bad day and decide that it requires support and requires them not to go to work because it's a sickness. And we're getting into this point where actually the only people, well, it's bad for the people themselves. If you're off work on the sick for months or even years and never go out to work, there's a huge cost to you financially. There's a huge cost to you in terms of your own mental health. There's nothing compassionate about paying out unquestionable levels of sickness benefits. It's bad for the people themselves. It's bad for the taxpayer. It's bad for society.
Couldn't agree more. So we talked about Boris Johnson, who I do. I was have been a fan of, and but I absolutely accept that the net zero thing was part of his problem. I'm sure I'm going to watch Matt Vickers' face. If you're watching on YouTube, watch this for a deadly serious response. Johnson has today blamed the Church of England of Britain's obesity crisis, saying that its failure to provide people with spiritual sustenance has led people to gorge themselves. The former PM said that when he was younger, it was very rare for a fatso to be in the class. Now they're all fatsos. I'll get shot for saying they're fatsos, but it's the bloody truth. There's fatsos everywhere. If Welby and his idiots had spent more time going on about people's needs rather than slavery reparations, there wouldn't be so many fatsos in the world. God, I've missed him to a degree. What do you make of that?
Well, Boris isn't the slimmest of fellas, actually. Isn't he? But I think in real terms, I don't think there's a lot of fat kids making the choice between prayers and pasties. I don't think that's where he was going. But I read a little bit of the article, and he talked about the fact that actually it's about society, and it's about the fact that, now we watch on social media and there's paedophiles everywhere, I think was the language he used. There's this fear of paedophiles. When I was younger and I'd go out with my mates on a bike or whatever, we'd disappear off for hours and hours, and my parents would be quite happy that I was going to turn up when it got dark and I wanted something to eat. I'd be covered in mud.
She'd shout tea at 7 when it got dark. I'm exactly the same. We went out for 3 hours on our bikes, mate, and come home. That was it.
It was never an issue. So you've got this fear now that stops kids being able to go out and play. But you've also got this weird fear that many of the activities that people get organised, the football club, the scouts, the whatever it might be, where youngsters actually get outside and get to go and do some organised fun. Would you volunteer to run any of those groups now, Jeremy?
No, but my wife would. I
wouldn't. Will not do it. So as a result, there's a generation of young people out there who lack male role models because everybody is scared to death of getting involved, volunteering and helping kids out and teaching them the way.
But you talk about that as well, which sort of reminds me of something I was going to put to you. And you're Shadow Crime and Policing and Fire Minister. We've got to a point, right, under this government, and this is absolutely at Starmer's door, where I use her example regularly, but that woman who wrote the disgusting things she wrote about the Muslim community, I would have taken her to a Muslim community and done what I call community service and learnt about how ridiculous and unfair and grotesque her comments were. But she got 15 months in prison. But Hugh Edwards, and you just brought it up, and other paedophiles are walking free. That is not right. The crime, the police, everything's wrong. And I'm going to be really honest with you. I was massively disappointed in your party at the end. I think they deserved to lose. I think the British public had stopped listening. I don't think I can remember a party, genuinely, in my lifetime that has started this badly. And when I look at him, and I'm sure it's, for you lot, frustrating, but also exhilarating because you think you've got a chink in the armour. I don't think there's a plan. I think it's reactive. I don't think it's proactive. And I just don't see it. It's going to last, but I don't see it working in any which way. And I actually believe at the end of 5 years, a socialist government, whether it's Reform or the Tories or a combination, I don't think Labour will get back for flipping years on the back of this. It's only been 5 months.
Our biggest failure as a party was allowing that lot to take over. That's the worst thing we've ever subjected the British people to. Actually, they've been in how long now? We've seen them taken out on pensioners. I go back to my surgeries and I hear from pensioners in tears because they're making these decisions. And it's, you know what? It's usually the most vulnerable. It's people on 13 grand who live alone, who are widows, you know, the people who the Labour Party is meant to look after.
Yeah.
You then see all this carry on with what's being done to farmers, which is just it's just completely unfair, evil, unjust and wrong to families who farmed the same farm for generations. And what we're about to see that hasn't really made the press yet was the changes to business rates for leisure, hospitality and retail, the changes to NICs. And what's that going to mean to the Great British High Street, to the little pub down the road? The business rates changes is about £6,000 to the average pub. Then the NICs payments that's going to cost them to charge, well, for everybody they employ, they're going to be paying thousands more. It's unbelievable.
And what it's basically saying is we're trying to grow the economy. No, you're not. You're giving bloated wage rises to the public sector, your union paymasters, and you're saying to anybody who is creating a business and employment and orders and thus, I say, revenue, we're going to screw you. I honestly, and here's the irony. Somebody said it earlier. Can't even remember who it was. Sorry, Russell Quirk said in 2 or 3 years, all the successful men and women who are leaving this country won't be paying tax on their earnings and their turnovers, so the Treasury will miss out. I'm going to throw a few quick things at you, Matty. You've been brilliant. A couple of other stories.
One point, Jeremy. Every Labour Party, every Labour government in history has left office with unemployment higher than when they arrived. This one, I think, is going to reach for the stars. It's going to have huge impact on families across the country.
I like your honesty. I do like your honesty, and I'm going to repeat what you said. The worst thing that your party did, you said, and I quote, was allowing these people to get in. I listen. We had to be straight down the line, as you have to when you're broadcasting. It's called Purda, but I was there. I was 14. I saw it. It was bloody awful. Where do you stand on no extra bank holiday next year to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War? Starmer, Drama, Karma, Farmer, Harmer, Two-Tier. I've lost out his names. He's not doing it. Where do you stand on that?
So I think bank holidays are really costly things for businesses. We've seen we've just been talking about a lot of businesses who are going to be put out of business in the next year or so by this government. So they are hugely costly things. They do come with a big challenge for businesses who've got to employ people and they're off. But you know what? If there was ever a reason to have an additional bank holiday, that is it. Is to celebrate the sacrifices made by so many people.
I'm waiting for some group of people to cancel or try and degrade what happened in one of the world wars because of, honestly, mate, anything that we seem to have been brought up on. J.K. Rowling, I get very opinionated on this because I think women's rights are massively important, hand on heart. I don't really understand how women's rights groups suddenly lose any sense of what's right for a woman when they get embroiled in the transgender argument. J.K. Rowling today has criticised the British Transport Police that rules that allowed transgender officers to strip search women. Matt Vickers, where are you and your party on this?
It just seems bizarre, doesn't it? It just seems bizarre. I think one of the great things about this country is you can live how you want to live, you can be what you want to do, you can dress how you want to dress, and you can do whatever you want to do with whoever you want to do it with. And I think that's a really powerful thing in this country. But actually, when we get to the point where one set of freedoms, some freedoms that we offer to one party, one group of society eats over the freedoms of another, it's just wrong. We've got to protect those spaces that people have grown up enjoying and yeah. Does it not make sense to have male toilets, female toilets and transgender toilets? Does it not make sense? This is what I don't get. I keep saying about Isla Bryson. We all saw that man in Scotland who raped 2 women, put on a pair of leggings and a wig. You could see his lunchbox. You're saying, are you? Not you. They were saying, let's put him in a female jail. That's putting women at danger, isn't it? We find out. There's too many examples where we go on to see the consequences of it. But in real terms, I think as a country, we're slightly obsessed with the debate. Yeah. What is a small minority of people, we see these horrendous situations. And the problem with this country is common sense is not very common. It doesn't come around very often.
It's on this station.
Solutions to some of these problems. But the people who get het up in this is the extremes at both ends. So there are people who are really anti-people living in whatever way they want to live. And at the other end, you've got people who want to rub things in people's face. The normal people making those choices in life and living that way never get involved in any of these debates. They live their life normally. But at the other extreme, I have to tell you one bizarre example I've had recently in my patch. We had a public toilet. It was a single public toilet that was in the town centre that anybody could go to, disabled access, great. It was skanky. It was horrible. It had been there for decades. So we replaced it. We got another toilet in another public building down the road, put it in place. And the next thing, I was inundated with emails telling me, why have you introduced a gender-neutral toilet into town? It was a single toilet that was replaced with another single toilet, but because it was shared. So it's people taking things to the extreme and having a debate about something that's completely irrelevant.
Do you think we get waylaid a bit by people, the extremists, the Just Stop Oil, the Extinction Rebellion, do you think that somehow what's played out on social media and sometimes on stations like this is not symptomatic, and I hope not symptomatic of what most people think? Because I go back to the Trump example. There was this big ideological debate in America about women's rights and abortion and Roe versus Wade, and I get all of that. I absolutely get that. But actually 85 million people in America went, sorry, but I'm interested in the price of petrol and food and immigrants. And you go, oh, right, so actually the people are going to be listened to, because I think that's here. I think all politicians, I think every politician needs to understand that the British people, I know they're dissatisfied with politics, but I think they're more switched on than they've ever been. I really do.
Yeah. I think one of the problems is social media. We have all these algorithms that reinforce what you want to look at, and it feeds you the same. So all these nutters are actually watching other nutters tell them that what they're saying is right on social media, because it feeds your own news feed. Yeah. Then you get these people watch the BBC all day and come back with very bizarre... The
BBC is turning into the Labour Party headquarters. Quick question, final question to you. How's Kemi Badenoch, your new boss, doing? Have you got that job? Have you been given that job again, or did she give you the shadow?
I'm back. Yeah, I kept the job. I backed the other horse, didn't I, Jeremy? Do you remember I had that wonderful T-shirt with Robert Jenrick's?
Yes. So did you expect the tin tack from Badenoch or Badenoch?
Well, I wasn't sure, but she kept me on. Must be doing something right, or yeah. So far, so good. I think she's going to be sound. She seems to be a straight talker. That's what we like. We want people who are going to say what they think without worrying about offending people. I think that's...
I'll tell you why I have you on, because you're one of the very few Tories that puts your hand in the air and say, this is where we did wrong, but you care passionately about the country, and we really, really, Matt, appreciate you being on, and good luck in that new job.